assignment, yes.
Excellent. So Christine, why don't you go ahead and walk folks through what their final assignment is.
Okay, so hopefully you have found some really cool things about GIS, and you have been thinking about your story map, and you are at least have some idea of where you want to go. So your final assignment is to take everything that we've done so far and to create a story map. Okay, there we go. So really the most important thing is really think about what is something that you can use in your classroom so that you're not just doing a random assignment. Your story map has to have at least 7 slides. It should contain a title or home section, at least 5 pieces of content, and a citation bibliography section. The citation part is really important because one of the things that we need to check before we can post them is that all of the images comply with copyright. So the citations and bibliography section helps us do that. Oh look, the next thing says that they must be appropriately cited. If you're not familiar with it, there's an easy way to get things that are copyright, that are within copyright, is when you search on Google. If you go to images and use search tools, you can actually sort them by things that are usable, that are available for use for public domain, and it will make your life much easier if you're starting with those pictures. Your GIS content has to have at least 3 things. You need to have a base map, and so you have a bunch of choices, which Andy will show you, for your base map. A different map extent, so how close you zoom into something, or if you choose to be far away from something for each slide. You should have a variety of layers, so whether you want to show population or specific cities, you're going to have layers that people can turn on and off. You're going to want to symbolize the things. So you've got points, lines, and polygons. Points are clearly like specific points. A line would be a river, a road, whereas a polygon is going to be a state or an area. You're going to want to use spatial analysis tools, and you only need to use 3 of these. So if you are, if it would be helpful for kids to look at the measurement, how far away something is, if you want to look at buffers, so one of the things we do is you can look at how close something is to a river. Those are really helpful, and that really kicks up your critical thinking piece. And then map notes. So something that is super easy, especially if you're doing a lower grade, is to use map notes with pictures, and they're a pretty easy way to get kids into the map. For multimedia, you have to have at least 1 appropriate piece of multimedia, which would be photos, YouTube clips per section. And those are super easy, and that really to me is sort of the thing that really hooks the kids, is different pictures and kind of getting them to see the story, which is really the bonus of GIS, is to get kids to see the geography behind it. And then again, we get the story maps. Story maps have to meet copyright laws. It is totally a pain to do the citation section, but I guarantee you it's going to make your life easier at the end if we don't have to email you and say, where did these come from? And then, of course, you're going to want to tell a story, because a story map is a story. So you're going to want to explain what people are looking at. It's a good place to write the instructions for kids. One of the things you guys have pointed out in the discussions is that really specific instructions are helpful. This is a good place to kind of do that so that your kids aren't looking between 2 and 3 different things. And I think that was it.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. Before we move away from this slide, does anyone have any questions? Okay. So yeah, what you'll see, what we're going for here is we really want a lot of flexibility with this, to where you have the right, you have the flexibility to choose something that will work in your classroom. Definitely treat this as a pilot project again. You know, we're all working hard, we're all teaching, we're all juggling families, so know that make sure you can chew what you bite off with this. So we do have a lot of flexibility with this and hope that it'll work okay. We've also embedded some tools, so let me show you. Let's see, if you go to our Canvas site, you will see we've also put some tools in here that you can work with. We've added a teacher's guide, and the teacher's guide is pretty straightforward. It's actually designed to work with you to have you build your own project. So if you were to download that, this is what it will look like, and you'll see that we've given you some tips and tricks to prepare a project for your class or for your own work if you're designing a story map. Also, steps for the story map procedure. So you'll see in project preparation, it's really about identifying your topic. If you're designing it for your classroom, grabbing and collecting a lot of pictures and resources that you'd like for students to use so you don't lose a lot of time of that valuable instructional time just spinning your wheels. Checking to make sure that the images are available online or that there's a direct link to it. Having accounts ready for your students or setting up your own account. And then the story map procedures is what Andy's going to walk you through of where you go to storymaps.com or in ArcGIS Online, where you go from making a map to creating an app. A key thing to note is that there's the map that you're going to make, and then there's the story map, which is actually an online app that takes advantage of the map. So what Andy will be showing you is considered a map app. My apologies for all the apps. It's just the way that it was designed. You'll notice that when you go to the story map, it'll give you an option to take a tour if you'd like, and then you walk your way through all the steps. And finally, if you'd like a graphic organizer to start to frame or, pun intended, map out your story map, we have given this to you as a Word document that you can either use in your classroom or use to help design your own story map. Again, you will find all of this under step 4.3 under Next Stop Story Maps. And then here's where you can download your editable story map graphic organizer if you'd like to organize your thoughts using that. So these are the tools that you have: the assignment, the creating map, journal story map, teacher's guide, and then also some help for collecting images and the editable graphic organizer. Are there questions about this aspect? Okay, we're going to transition in a moment over to Andy, and he's going to walk you through, once you make your maps, how do you start to make a story map? So Andy, give me just a moment to stop sharing, and then we can switch over.
The 8th grade world geography subject of geographic site, and I made this using simple map notes. One map note for each of the 7 different types of sites, and then I put appropriate pins within each map note for the appropriate city. So, here is New York, and you can see it's a harbor site. If I turn harbor off, you'll see that New York goes away. So this is something, when I taught world geography, a lot of kids struggle with this because really, in essence, for the state of Virginia, for the SOLs, this was simple memorization of why cities began where they did. And so a few years ago, I started teaching it by having the students make their own GIS map with symbolizing pins and adding pictures and text for each of the assigned cities. And so I figured we'll use this one to make a story map. The story map I make on the videos that are in Canvas deal with national parks. I'm kind of tired of talking about the national park maps, and either way, the way to make it is the same. First thing you want to do is you do want to make sure you have a good map, because it's very difficult to go back in and change your map once you've launched the app to make a story map. And there are 2 ways to make a story map. One is from the story map gallery, which there's directions for that on Canvas. To me, however, the easier way is right here from ArcGIS. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make sure I have it saved. And once it saves, it will allow sharing. So I click on the share button, and you can see I have it open to the public, everything else. If I wanted to send someone a link, I could do that there, but that's really not what we're interested in. We're interested in, as Chris said earlier, creating a web app. And from here, you can select any, a multitude of Esri apps, and I encourage you to go in there and mess around with them. Some of them are really cool. Some of them are not as user-friendly as the others. But for purposes of this class, we want to build a story map. And so once we click on Build a Story Map, we have different options, different types of story maps to look at. Some of you guys looked at the U-boat map by the Smithsonian. That was a story map basic. For this class, we wanted to do a story map journal. So we'll select that, we'll create a web app, and give it a title. It kind of comes up with a default title. And so right now what it's doing is kind of creating the app based upon the map that you made. And you can add other maps to it. I'll show you that in a minute. It's not just beholden to the one map that you created. You can use any map that's in your My Content. But to me, it's just easier to launch it from that main map. And so we're just going to go with this as our title for it. And so you can see we have it divided into two panels. You have a main stage over here. This is where your map, your large-scale images, your large-scale multimedia videos will be hosted. Over here, this is your side panel. This is where you can add in content, such as multimedia videos, pictures. You can put in a lot more text over here as well. And to me personally, I like to not start with a map on my first slide. So I'm actually going to select image. Very simple. They used to host Facebook images, but no longer. And this is the key with ArcGIS images. They have to be web hosted. It can't just be a picture that you have on your hard drive. It has to have a web address assigned to it. So we'll select URL. And I searched and searched for a good picture of geographic site and really couldn't find one. And so that's why you guys got to see this just Google image search of world geography up on my desktop. As Christine was saying, if you go to Search Tools and you click on More Tools, you click on Usage Rights, you can find ones that are labeled for non-commercial use or reuse, and pick one that you like. I'll choose this one. And to me, you can right-click and take it from here, but I like to actually go out and have it as a standalone web page. And right-click and just say copy image address. Close out of that. Come back to your map journal, paste your picture in, and so in here, this is where we're going to add our text. I went ahead and just made a quick definition of geographic site. I'll put that in as an overview. Just paste that in. And right now it's just like any HTML or Word document. If you want to make it bold, it's already bold and everything else. Just right up here on your dash panel. And so we'll just click Add. And there's a very simple title page. If I was having students make this, I might ask them to put some type of picture over here, perhaps a video. You'll notice up in the upper right corner, that's your Save button. This is web-based. If I were to hit the backspace button, or if I was to close this tab, I might get a dialog box telling me, or do you really want to close this tab? But sometimes I might not. So it's important to save this quite often. Okay. And so from here, we're really just building, a Google slide or a PowerPoint, but it has the separate panels. And the great thing about the separate panels is it interacts with your map. So I'm just going to put in a title, site types, and right here I want to go with a map as opposed to an image, a video, or a web page. So map. I look down and notice this is the map I used to make it. It says site map, story map version, map used to publish the map journal. Sure, that's the one I want to use. And so I select that. Here is where I can control the appearance of my map on the screen. The location. So I select custom configuration. It's going to show me, do I want the map to look like this? Not really, right? I don't want it that far zoomed in. I want to see all of my colorful pins that I put on here. And so I'm going to kind of zoom it out like that. And then once I find a location that I like, I'm going to save my map location. What type of content do I want to show on this? Well, these are all of my map notes. And for this, being that I want to show every type of geographic site, I want all of these to be on. And I don't want any of the pop-ups open right now, so I'm just going to leave that at the map default. I'm going to click Next. And so now it's time to put in some text. Just have some types of site here. Paste those in. And so now this acts kind of as a table of contents. And I think Chris is going to go into this a little bit more, but I'll go into it now as well, just for some repetition. I'm going to make this table of contents somewhat interactive to my map. So I'm going to highlight confluence sites, and you'll notice that right now this is not, there's no option for me to click in here. As soon as I highlight something, I get options in what's called my main stage. Notice now that I linked, or I highlighted it as well, I could also hyperlink it to an external web page if I really wanted to. But for now, I'm just going to do what's called a main stage action. Highlight confluence sites, click in here, and say, you know what, when someone clicks on main stage options, I want them to only see, well, when someone clicks on confluence sites, excuse me, I only want them to see the confluence sites. So I'm going to go to Content, and I'm going to turn off every other tab. And I'm going to say save that. I'll click Apply. I'll click Add. Just give me a second to save that. And you'll see that this one is highlighted, whereas none of these are, or at least this is underlined. And so when I click on confluence sites, all of the other sites go away, and I'm just left with those two sites. And so what I would do is, you know, for a classroom demonstration, or if I was having students do this, I would have them go in and hyperlink all of those. Add one more section to this. Let's say I want to add a whole section on confluence sites. I would look at my map, it looks good like that. So I save my map location. And now once again, I only want the confluence sites on. So I clicked on Content, and I'm going to turn off all of those. Save it. And you know, I could, if I really wanted to, leave one of these pop-ups open. You can't leave simultaneous pop-ups open, or at least we didn't configure the map to do that. So I'll leave it like this for now. And I'll hit Next. Grab my little explanation of confluence sites. Paste those in. And, you know, so here, coming back to those main stage actions, I can click on Pittsburgh, click in here to main stage actions. And so now I can say, when somebody clicks on Pittsburgh, I want them to be zoomed into Pittsburgh. So go to Location, click on Custom Configuration, zoom it into Pittsburgh. You can zoom in as far as you want. The key is, though, to hit Save Map Location. All right, there's the town I grew up in, so hit Save Map Location. And I actually, those are the only layers on there is Confluence, so I don't have to worry about this. But I do want that pop-up to be open. So there we go. I'll hit Save Pop-up Configuration, hit Apply, hit Add. And so now when somebody clicks on Pittsburgh, it brings you to that. You can put as many pictures, you know, over here as you want. To me, I find it easier to just go with one picture per section. To add a picture to a section, you would just, so this is the Edit button right here. So if I wanted to add a picture of a confluence in here, I'm actually going to highlight this now, and I'm going to cut all of my work here. To me, it looks better, and now I'm going to click on this camera, and I'm going to say Image, and I want a URL. And all of that work that I just cut out, I'm actually going to make that in as a caption. It just kind of frames it up. It looks a little bit nicer. And I'll go out and get a picture of a river confluence to put in here. Once again, utilizing public images. Here's hoping one actually comes up that is worthwhile. copy image address, come on back to there, paste that image address in, hit apply, now I hit save, and so you can see it kind of messed up my configuring in there, and so I'd have to go back in and redo that, having cut it. But you can see how you can get a picture in there with a caption. I would go back in and just clean that image caption up a little bit. And so, you know, it's relatively easy once you get the hang of it. Chris, it's about all I think I need to go with on that. There are videos on Canvas and on our iSTEM-GIS YouTube channel that walk you through this procedure with a different map.
Okay, Andy, I'm going to unshare your application. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Then I'm going to start sharing.
The one thing I didn't show you is how to embed a YouTube video. It's, you know, essentially the same as putting in a picture. Like I said, they're on the previous videos we've done on how to create a story map journal. It's just a matter of right-clicking on the video you want and saying copy video URL.
Okay. Can you see my screen, Andy?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So as Andy was saying, we've embedded a lot of tutorials that we hope will help you with this assignment, that will walk you through a lot of what you saw there. Under 4.4, you'll see just a brief explanation and review of what we've talked about today of what a map journal story map is. We are specifically targeting the use of the map journal story map. We found that to be most applicable to so many different skills in the classroom. Once you make this story map, you may, there are many templates in Esri's pre-made setup, so you can choose to do other story maps. But we think this one's a nice one that leverages a lot of different skills. We then can walk you through, if you were to make a story map with the Civil War map you made, this walks you through that and shows you a lot of the same things Andy showed today. And then here's a collection of tutorials on getting started, how to add a title page, how to create and set your maps, and then how you can do further customization. So if you need some other review, please check out these videos. The last piece I want to show you is just to reinforce what Andy was showing you, like take advantage of all the different interactivity pieces you have here. Build your map components ahead of time. As Andy was cutting and pasting, it's so much easier. Word has spell check and other things, and so does Google Docs. So this is a simple map journal story map that takes advantage of the Civil War map you made. You can notice in this page here, we set our main stage to point to a Library of Congress image of the Union and the Confederacy fighting at Fort Sanders. And then towards the end, you'll notice that we decided to add some interactive text here. So it says right here, for major events, while there were over 300 battles fought in the Civil War, then it says click here to see that map. Well, right now, if I click here, nothing happens. If I choose the edit tool here, and I highlight the word here, notice as Andy was showing you, these tools up here become active, and I can say, you know what, change the main stage content when a user clicks on this text. And at that moment, it says, well, what do you want to configure? And here, we want to configure the content, because we want the users to be able to see the battle. So if I choose to configure the content, notice as Andy demonstrated, I can turn off features, then say I want them to be able to see all the battles. And then I choose Save Map Content, and once I choose Apply, and if I save it, well, let's try that again. That should have worked. Let's see. We'll highlight, click here. And so now when I click on the word here, notice it turned off my map notes and it turned on my battle. So just wanted to reinforce that this was a tool that just came out last spring, and it's a really useful tool to add much more interactivity to it. As Andy said, you can embed YouTube videos and other images. Just wanted to show you how to make your text interactive. And this is the Map Journal Story Map. Another important tip, save early, save often so your work doesn't get lost. At this point, that's really the overview of the activities. We will share a few more tips and tricks. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. The biggest tip and trick, I've said it a couple times, is choose something that is manageable for your first story map. If you want to go for the Taj Mahal, you can go for it. We have budgeted for this course that we expect for this to probably take you 6 to 10 hours to complete over the next 2 weeks. So that includes the research. If you can create a really good story map in less than 6 hours, that's great. We do know that it does take research and so forth. So we have budgeted 6 to 10 hours for this module. Christine and Andy, do you have any tips and tricks you'd like to share?
My thought on it is just, pick a subject matter that you are familiar with, maybe something that you teach every year, but you just want to try teaching it in a different manner to create an interactive story map for your students. As Chris said, you could be super ambitious and try to build the Taj Mahal, but I think if you know the subject matter better, you can build and design a nice map, which is essential to building a good story map. And once you have that good map built, you can then parlay that into a nice story map. Get a couple of decent story maps under your belt and then swing for the fences. And there's a lot, these are really powerful to use in your classroom, but it does take a little bit of time, and it's better to kind of start slow and build a nice one to begin with.
Yeah, I would second Andy's thing. My issue with GIS is always that I aimed way too big and then I would get frustrated. I would definitely start small, and if you've got like a solid story and then you can branch out because you haven't used all of your time and you know that this would really work, then do that. But be kind to yourself and remember that you want to have a solid story map so that you get kids really involved and interested, and you don't have maybe too many bells and whistles. So I would say start small and work from there.
My final,
take that civil. I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
The final tips I would add is, one, maybe look for something you've already done well. Like you might have a really great PowerPoint that you can jazz up and take those elements that you've already created and instead create an interactive story map that you hand off to your students to work with a worksheet. And then also take advantage of the Story Map Cafe discussion thread we have. If you can't find certain GIS layers or you need some guidance, we will be checking it regularly to provide feedback, or even use that as a place to put questions out to your course mates on what to do. So take advantage of the discussion thread and maybe see what you already have sitting around that you'd like to jazz up as a story map.
Yeah, and practice with the Civil War maps that you guys made. Launch a story map app from there and just kind of plug around with it before you actually get into building the story map that you want to use in your classroom. I know a few people mentioned just on various discussion boards, wanting something for younger grade students. Just different map scale and map extent. Those are good things for students at that age group to learn. You can also make story maps into web quests or webinars. You can make them as interactive with your students as possible or as much as you want, or you can even just make them for classroom presentations. The choice is really yours in that matter.
At this point, we'll see if any of you have any questions or if there's something you need clarification for, because I'm sure if you need clarification, others do as well. Feel free to raise your hand and we can. Okay. Catherine, let's see. You have audio. Please share your thoughts with us. Or if necessary, you can put it in the chat box. see. Other folks with any questions or need for clarification?
Chris, your question is in the chat box.
Oh, hers is. Okay, then let's see. Oh, good question. 5 sections are just 5 different slides. Not necessarily getting them to do 5 different things or layers with the same map. Just creating 5 different sections is just 5 different stages of your story map. So think about each one, and you don't need to have 5 different layers. It's like 5 different slides in a PowerPoint, 5 different stages between the home button on your story map to your citations page. Good question.
Catherine, what I always like my students to do is make a title page, some sort of table of contents page, so we can make that interact with our map, and then support slides underneath it. You know, you can go 30 pages or 30 slides on a story map, but you really don't need to. You know, if you can tell your story in 7 slides, then great.
Any other questions? We thank you all for joining us. If you do have any questions, contact any of us, chime in on the discussion thread, and thanks for being a part of this course. We look forward to working with you and seeing what you cook up in the next 10 to 14 days. Thanks for being here.
Have a good night, everyone.